Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the ECM podcast. I'm Caroline Fontagneux, and I'm very happy to host this series that will take you behind the scenes of new music on ECM Records. In this new episode, I'm meeting with Bennie Maupin to celebrate the Luminessence vinyl release of his ECM iconic album from 1974, the Jewel In The Lotus. We talked about spirituality, arts, Miles Davis, and so much more. I want to start with asking you, you have the most amazing career, but throughout the time I read and I heard you saying multiple times that The Jewel in the Lotus was one of your favorite albums that you recorded.
It was the first of my own.
It's the first as a leader.
Yes.
So what makes this album so special?
Well, one of the reasons that it's special is that I'm a Buddhist. And I practice the same Buddhism as Tina Turner, Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter. So we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So I started chanting to be able to move my life and my career. And, things, oddly enough, started happening. And then I had the opportunity to record with Marion Brown. Because he's on the label.
Yeah.
And he was one of my very best friends. Mm-hmm. That was kind of like the beginning of...
Afternoon of a Georgia Fawn.
Afternoon of a Georgia Fawn.
What a good title.
Yeah, well, he was from Georgia. He was beautiful. He was a great writer.
So you recorded this in 1970, and then 4 years later, 74, 50 years ago, you recorded The Jewel in the Lotus.
Yeah.
So that's music that you wrote for this specific album?
I wrote every note.
And talk to me about the band. I mean, there were your brothers at that time that did
Herbie we were
and
all
Kat
playing
and
together a lot.
Yeah.
During that time. Mm-hmm. So when I finally had talked to Manfred, and he said, I want you to do a project and, get it together and we'll go. Mm-hmm. So I told Herbie about it, and I told Buster about it, and they were in agreement with me. They said, oh yeah, we'd love to do it. So, based on that, I knew I was going to have them because we had played together a lot during that time. So I just said, okay. And Manfred was very cool. I said, Manfred, I just want to write some music. And he said, just go ahead, do whatever it is you want to do, and we'll record it. So I said, oh, okay. Because you never know. I mean, during that time, a lot of my friends were trying to do things that were popular on the radio and all. I said, I can't do that. That's a lie. I mean, how you can tell a lie? It's going to represent your life forever. This guy lied.
Yeah.
So I said, no.
Do you remember anything about the time in the studio when you recorded this album? How was the vibe in the studio?
The environment?
Yeah, how was the vibe? How was the atmosphere in the studio?
Well, before I even got to the studio, I was taking like a break from touring with Herbie because we were active with the sextet. I mean, we had some activity.
You were busy. You were busy.
So I talked to Herbie, and I talked to Buster, and Billy Hart, and Freddie Waits, and the guys who were involved in that. Mm-hmm. These are like my closest friends. So I told them that I had done this project with Marianne, and Manfred said he'd like to record me. So they would say, oh, okay, well, let us know. And so finally, I contacted Manfred and we talked. He says, okay, I'll look and pull things together and we'll do it.
How was the work with him?
He was totally cooperative. Totally. I had absolutely nothing to say about the production attitude and when we were doing it, and we talked a lot and we discussed how we were going to do it, and he wanted to know, more about the music. I said, well, I'm writing the music and I have certain people in mind, and this is what I want to do. I found a book, actually, by that title, The Jewel In The Lotus. And I read it, and it was really inspirational. And it was just talking about elevating your life and making every effort to be focused towards not only yourself, but helping other people.
Yeah.
And that was something that we were really curious about. I mean, we were all looking for a way to elevate ourselves and to present music that we really felt good about.
Is it still a big part of your life, Buddhism?
Every day.
Yeah, you chant?
I chant in the morning and I chant in the evening.
That's beautiful.
You have to chant with me before we leave each other.
I will.
Yeah.
Maybe we won't record that though.
Well, you can record it if you want to. There's a lot of stuff online.
You'll teach me.
Sure.
I remember a conversation that I had with Herbie.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, about Buddhism. But I was just trying to understand, because it takes so much time to get wise. It takes time to practice wisdom, and like the whole Buddhist philosophy takes time to just embrace it, no?
We started because we were curious. And
who was the first? Herbie was?
Buster
Williams.
Buster was first. And so, since we were all together all the time, it was like, okay.
Let's look interesting. So he taught you to chant first?
He did,
Yeah.
because it was funny. Once he started, of course, he was by himself.
Yeah.
But then on one of our road trips, in order to save money, we'd get a hotel room that had 2 beds, so we could.
You were roomies, and then he started
On
chanting.
the road, yeah. Buster started. Once he started, he said, "This is a great thing to do. I feel so different.
Wow.
I'm getting along better with my wife."
Wow.
And he started talking about his benefits. So then we started traveling, and the only way we could save any money was to share a room in a hotel. So because I was in there with Buster,
Yeah.
I mean, we were up. We played the gig, then we get back to the hotel, and we're like,
And you heard him chanting.
hey, it was 7 o'clock, 7 in the morning. Buster's, and I was like, hey man, do you have to do that right now? And he said, yeah. He said, you have to do it. You have to do it in the morning, and you do it in the evening, and you chant for anything you want. So I said, okay. He said, why don't you just come and chant with me?
Wow.
So I said, oh, all right. And he taught me how to chant. We chanted. I kind of liked it though. I got a buzz. I felt really good. I said, He said, yeah. He said, just do it. So that was the beginning, and the rest of the band, they were sort of paying close attention to us to see if it would last for a couple of weeks, then it would be over.
Yeah.
But it wasn't over.
Yeah.
Because when we were traveling around the United States, we started to meet other people who were chanting.
Oh, wow.
We met a lot of Japanese women who married American GIs and had moved to America. And they came with the philosophy, and they introduced their husbands and their families. At that time, it was still very much in the pioneer stages. It wasn't around the world like it is now. But I started chanting, and I started to notice that I really felt so good. You know, I was battling with sometimes I think mild depression. But I was enjoying what I was doing musically. That was lovely. But it was something going on inside me. I couldn't quite get it. So when I talked to Buster about it, and then I met some other people who practiced, and they said, well, you can chant for anything. So I just chanted to feel better.
And it worked.
Sure did.
The cover of this album.
You know who did the cover?
No, tell me.
The woman who did the cover, she is one of the greatest African American artists.
You have this smile on your face when you're talking about her.
Well, when I talk about her, I can't help but smile.
Tell me everything.
Her name is Betty Sarr. You have to research her. And she's amazing. And I talked to her, because I was married to her sister at that time. And, I had the opportunity to record. And so Manfred asked me, well, what do you want to do for a cover? I said, well, I have someone that I really love their artwork. He said, oh, that's okay. Just go ahead, So I talked to Betty, and I told her what it was, what I was doing. And
it's so special.
Yeah, I told her I had no idea what she was going to do. She said, well, can you give me a photograph?
Did she hear the music that she was going to create?
No, she did not. She never heard anything.
It's crazy because it goes so well with the music. It's really like it's a hug. It's like a hug. You gave her a photograph, and she did this gorgeous yellow, sunny...
I gave her the photograph, I had explained to her that I wanted to say something through symbolism, through the photography and through whatever it was. And I told her about the theme that I had in mind. She created this beautiful...
magic. Can you talk to me about your instruments?
What about them?
Well, all of them. Flute, sax, bass clarinet. You're still playing those.
Yes.
The three of those.
My mentor is the great Dr. Yusef Lateef. Okay?
Yeah.
And when I was a young man starting in Detroit, I started studying music, and I discovered Yusef and a lot of other great musicians who were in Detroit. And I just went to hear them as much as I could.
Yeah.
But he impressed me greatly because he played so many different instruments. He played the flute, he played the shehnai, he played the saxophone. He sang sometimes.
Yes.
He did lots of different things. And he became my mentor. Yeah, I got to know him.
So what was your first instrument?
Actually, it was the piano.
That was the piano.
And then I started playing on the flute.
Because of Yusef Lateef?
Well, I wanted to play the saxophone.
Yeah.
But the clarinet was more available to me.
Okay.
So I played it a little while, but I didn't like it.
You didn't?
No. It was just too hard.
Yeah.
And for me, I didn't have anyone to teach me. I was trying to learn, But then after a while, I found a way to get a saxophone. Because saxophone during the 60s became very popular.
Yeah.
In the blues music and in jazz.
So your first sax was a tenor?
No.
Was it alto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was alto. And my high school band leader, he directed me to a music school, and I started taking private lessons with a man who's really very well known. His name was Larry Teal, and he was one of America's most outstanding classical saxophonists. And I didn't know much about any of that, but later I discovered who he was. So I studied with him, I studied with his son, And they gave me what I needed. They gave me the foundation, and I took my lessons once a week. But I also had the opportunity to meet some other musicians who were studying at the same school.
That was in Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started spending time with them. Then I started to learn more about improvisation, and I listened a lot. I lived near the library, so the library became my home.
Wow.
Every day.
Wow.
I did my homework there, and they had the most incredible recording library. So I got to listen to Bach and Brahms and Sutter Finnegan and Woody Herman and blues, everything. That became my home. Started to hear the music. There was a place that I could go to. It was called the World Stage. And that's where I could go because you didn't have to be 21. So my friends in the school, we would go. And in there I heard Yusef. He was my main influence because he was playing the flute.
And do you remember when you started playing the bass clarinet?
When did I start?
Later?
Yeah.
And is it true that Miles would call this instrument your weird horn or something?
He called it the funny horn.
The funny horn. But he loved it.
He called me lots of times.
For it.
Obviously.
I mean, your sound was very special, and he hired you for so many projects with it.
He wanted me to be, he had heard me play. Mm-hmm. And some of the music that I was playing was we were experimenting.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that attracted him to me. Plus, some of my friends already had a connection to him.
Jack DeJohnette.
Right. Chick Corea.
Yeah.
Joe Zavinu,
yeah.
who was one of my neighbors, he and his family. Mm-hmm. And so all of this stuff is kind of going on. And, when I got the call, I always wanted to play with Miles. I mean, who didn't want to? Everybody wanted to play with him. And it didn't happen.
Do you remember this first call?
Yeah.
What did he say?
What did he say?
Do the voice.
Miles was very cryptic sometimes.
Yeah.
He just said in that raspy voice, "Hey, what you doing?" He said, "I want you to come and record with me."
With your funny horn.
Yeah. He said, "Bring that funny horn." So I said, "Okay." He said, "Somebody will call you." I said, "Oh, wow. All right." And I was like, "Wow." So I immediately called Jack.
Yeah.
Because Jack and Chick Corea, they were playing with Miles during those years, right? And they were trying to get me in there anyway, but of course Wayne was there already, so I was like, I can't mess with this. And I called Jack and I said, "Hey, Jack, Miles called me." And Jack said, "Yeah? What'd he say?" He asked me to come to Columbia Studios. He said, "Okay, I'll see you there." I went to the studio. And the rest of it's history.
Amazing.
I had no idea of what was going to happen, but Miles totally embraced me. And, there were times when I would play and I was not quite comfortable. First, I'm there, Miles is on one side and Wayne Short is on the other. It's like, God, I need to have a sedative. But then I started thinking, and I said, well, damn, he called me. He wants me here.
Yeah.
I had to really talk to myself. I'm having this conversation.
Yeah.
And he's standing there.
He chose you.
And Wayne is standing there. So I just said, hey, I'm just going to be myself.
Yeah.
And I would play a little bit, and he would be there. And then I would get to a certain point where I said, well, maybe I'm not playing. Maybe I should stop. But when I would prepare to stop, Miles would be there and he would...
Don't stop, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So I said, oh, it's going to be like that. Okay, he just gave me carte blanche. So
Amazing.
the rest of it's history. But that was the turning point for a lot of things.
I love it. And you mentioned Chick. I mean, I just want to take a second to talk about the pianists in your life, because you collaborated with Chick Corea, of course, but also Horace Silver and McCoy Tyner, and there's Herbie, of course. Those guys.
I met Chick because Chick was around town.
Yeah.
And I would go hear Chick, who would play with great trumpet player Blue Mitchell.
Yes.
They all were playing with Horace Silver. So I would go hear them. And Chick and I, we became friends because we all had a lot of friends we were all sort of connected,
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of a lifelong friendship,
Amazing.
Because I didn't have a car. But Chick had a car.
So you were just like...
Well, I would go to hear them in New York City, but 2:00 in the morning, you gotta wait for the subway, and then you gotta walk, and so, I remember one night I went to hear him when they had this band. It was the same. It was Horace Silver's band.
Oh.
Without Horace, it was Chick.
With Horace band.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was Junior Cook.
Where was that?
Blue Mitchell, in New York, up in Harlem.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a time to be in New York.
Yeah, it was a place called Menton's. Did you know about that place?
No.
Very, very important place in jazz. Charlie Parker, all these great people played in there.
Wow.
So you got to do some research, find out about Menton's. So I would get on the subway, go to Menton's, and just stay all night and just listen.
And then Chick would drive you back?
And Chick saw me. I left one night and I was walking to the subway, and Chick saw me, and he said, "Hey man, where are you going?" I said, "Well, I get the subway so I could get home." He said, "No, come on." He had a car. He took me home.
What a nice man.
Chick and I had some great experiences together.
Yeah.
I used to rehearse in his house with Roy Haynes. You know who Roy Haynes is?
Yes.
Roy Haynes hired me. He hired Chick Corea and a guy who was a great bass player, was from Chicago. Kind of disappeared, but he could play really well. His name was Scotty Holt.
Okay.
And that was the beginning of a, lifelong friendship. Chick.
Bennie Maupin about his iconic album, The Jewel in the Lotus. Thank you for joining, choosing, and listening to our ECM podcast. I'm Caroline Fontagneux, and I look forward to sharing more music with you in the next episode.